Hello! This video is about my top 10 books of 2024. Hooray! Since New Year is approaching, I wanted to do a quick wrap up and pick the top 10 books out of the 41 I've read this year and rank them according to my level of engagement and emotional response. And basically, my favorites this year. So, yes, as a special condition, I removed Howl's Moving Castle since I've already included it in my top 5 favorite books of all time. It's just its own kind of special, so let's remove that. All right, let's start. My top 10 is Dune by Frank Herbert. So this one is special because first off, there was a movie that my husband wanted to watch, and second, I saw it being featured in Young Sheldon, where Sheldon was reading an older copy of Dune. So I thought to myself, I'm gonna buy a copy and I'm gonna read it. And then after that, we're gonna watch the movie together with my husband. And this was very nice. I don't typically enjoy science fiction, but this one is different because aside from the world itself, the spaceships and the robots and the planets and everything, the political intrigue was so very well written and such a big and iconic part of the book, and it was the element itself that I enjoyed the most, the political elements of the book. So I enjoyed it a lot, and there was a scene here, a dinner scene, where everyone was subtly hinting their political opinions or insinuating their power or the power struggles, and it was just so good. I reread that twice when I was reading Dune, and yes, top 10. It made it to my top 10. It beat some of the classics and some of the more enjoyable fantasy reads that I picked up this year. So, yes, top 10 Dune. I'm probably gonna read the next books maybe this year, but we'll see. That's it for my top 10. Top 9 is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Did you know that Mary Shelley, when she wrote this novel, she was only 18 years old? Oh my god, she was so talented because this book was so good, unexpectedly good. It's not like the horror where there's a green monster or there was that hideous laughing from the scientist. It's just there was more philosophy in it than I expected, and it's just very memorable for me. It was only a short novel, but it was able to tackle the topics that was not what I expected from this one, which is the consequences of pursuit, knowledge pursuit, the consequences of creation, and what it is to be human. And Frankenstein's monster, especially, was able to exhibit that when I was reading his point of view, and it was just so good. I would have ranked it higher, but some parts, especially Victor Frankenstein's point of view, those parts were a bit of a slog. I really like the monster's point of view more. So, yes, this one was so nice, and I recommend it to anyone who likes gothic or just are curious about Frankenstein's and its origins and history. So, this was written in 1818 by Mary Shelley, who was 18 years old at the time. So talented. Yeah, that is for my top 9. Top 8 is no more drum rolls. Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. So, I was a bit apprehensive about this because I read Pride and Prejudice when I was younger, and it didn't really captivate me as much. I don't know why. Maybe I wasn't used to classics before. But now that I am, and I picked up Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, I really liked it. And it is actually the first book that I tried to annotate. Jane Eyre is such a wonderful and inspiring character. She's brave, she knows her strengths and weaknesses, and she knows what she wants in life. And to me, that's just very inspiring. The religious messaging in the book as well was very interesting. It features the good side and bad side of religion. There were some characters here who exhibited the Christian virtue in such a good and kindly way, and there were some who tried to use their power and Christianity to oppress the weak. And it's just very interesting, that one, and it very much engaged me the whole book. So yeah, but obviously my favorite is Jane Eyre. She's so lovely, and maybe in the future I'll probably reread this. It's also gothic, so the theme is also gothic, but it's not like horror-ish. Yes, Jane Eyre, top 8. All right, top 7. Oh, top 7 already. Top 7? Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. This is both surprising and unsurprising. Unsurprising because obviously it's Tolstoy. Tolstoy, I have a bias for his works. He just writes so good. And surprising because I ranked it lower than I wanted it to be. It's top 7, but you gotta be honest with your feelings. So, Anna Karenina is Tolstoy's second big book, and it just is as complex. No, well, it's not as complex as War and Peace, but the characters themselves are very multifaceted and very complex. So reading this, it was just, obviously it's wow. It tackles infidelity, tackles religion, tackles politics, and that's what you would expect from Leo Tolstoy's works, and especially the philosophy. One character here actually portrays his beliefs, from being a man without faith to being a full-blown Christian. So yes, Anna Karenina is actually my favorite character here, even though she's very controversial. You'll know when you read it, but yes, Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. The video will be too long if I try to discuss the book. So yes, top 7. Now, for my top 6, this won't come as a surprise. Won't come as a surprise because I've already mentioned this in my previous video, and it is Bear Town by Frederick Backman. So for those who haven't watched my previous video, I've mentioned this there as one of my favorite winter reads. It's about a hockey town at the outskirts of Sweden, and it was just so beautifully written. The tone was enchanting, and Frederick Backman's way of writing, I feel like I made a special connection to it. So for those who probably wouldn't understand what what I'm saying, I try to read the first chapter. It's very short. So here you go. Late one evening toward the end of March, a teenager picked up a double-barreled shotgun, walked into the forest, put the gun to someone else's forehead, and pulled the trigger. This is the story of how we got here. Very intriguing. Oh, I have an alarm. So yes, that is my top 6 out of the 10 books. So Bear Town, very recommended by Frederick Backman. Right. Top 5 is Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Another Russian classic and my first book of Dostoevsky. This is just a heavy read, and they said it was expected of Dostoevsky since he tends to write his characters as very psychological and very philosophical. He writes his characters as vehicles for his philosophies, and I can definitely understand that since each page just packs a punch. And even though I wasn't as emotional with this book as some of the others, it still affected me since it made me think about these people here who had experienced depravity, depression, and other stuff. So, yes. I read this for 6 days, but I probably should have read it a bit longer because it was just so heavy, and I feel like when I try to reread it, I'll just discover more of the psychology of the character. So yes, that's my top 5 Crime and Punishment. I can't wait to explore more Dostoevsky next year. Okay, for my top 4. Oh, top 4 already. So it is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. Alexander Dumas, right? So when I was ranking the books, I didn't expect Count of Monte Cristo to be so up there. Maybe because I read it last February, so I almost forgot about it. But then I realized that, oh my god, this is such an enjoyable book. Like, really. So basically, the story is one man gets framed, a young man gets framed into going to, like, he was accused of a crime that he didn't do, got jailed for it, and then he eventually escapes, and then he takes his revenge among those people who ruined his life. And this book is like reading a movie, like a long movie. And towards the end, it just got very satisfying, as with all revenge stories. But it's full of adventure and morality, and like it's just so fun. Yeah, Count of Monte Cristo. Alexander Dumas is also the one who wrote The Three Musketeers, so I can't wait to read that as well. Yes, Count of Monte Cristo, top 4. Alright, so for my top 3, I can definitely say that they were the ones that really tugged my heartstrings. And apparently I love my heart being tugged. So yes, for my top 3. Snow Child by Yuwin Ivey. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, but yes, Snow Child. This is my last book for the year. And it was in my to be read as a winter read, and I didn't have a lot of expectations from it. I haven't even read reviews, or like I went in totally blind. I just saw some people rating it as 4 or 5 and I just thought, sure, why not? And I was so busy trying to finish all my to be read list for December that I totally forgot about it. And when I decided to borrow it from the local library, it was just pure magic. Oh my gosh. So it's special because one, it's set in Alaska, and we just visited Alaska last May. So I can vividly imagine the descriptions of wildlife and nature. And it was just so beautiful. The tone is also so heartfelt. And the story is based on a Russian folklore of a snow maiden. That one I didn't expect. So again, another Russian-inspired book. I don't want to say anything more than that because I feel like going in blind when reading this book is a wonderful treat. So, yes, this was supposed to be my top two actually, but the last 20 pages were a bit disappointing. But since the overall experience while reading the book was just so magical, it's still in my top three, and I still rated it 5 stars in Goodreads. Snow Child. Okay, top two. How Green Was My Valley by Richard Llewellyn. Llewellyn. Okay. This book is about nostalgia and the simplicity of life and growing up. And in a world where materialism, in the contemporary time of today, where materialism and consumerism is at its highest or most popular, this book just reminded me of simple times and how nature and family makes you the happiest. And I just cried when I was reading this. It's a book full of nostalgia and love. So basically, this is about a Welsh boy growing up in a mining community, and how growing up and the industrialization by the English in their town, or basically just industrialization in general, changed their way of life and changed his view on things. And you know, when we grow up, things get more complicated, and he just misses the simpler times. Actually, this one and Snow Child, they have very similar tones that just makes your heart heavy. The tone is very poignant and wistful, and I just love reading them. So yes, top two. I wish it was more popular, but I guess in the UK it is. So yes, top two. And for my top one, The Death of Ivan Ilyich by, surprise, Leo Tolstoy. So I read this one in Kindle and I loved it so much that I bought a physical copy for $3. This was incredibly impactful, and I can't state enough how I love the way Tolstoy wrote this story. Basically, it's just a man dying, but the way he wrote it, it feels so realistic, especially since I'm a nurse and I've seen countless deaths. And the way he described the dying person's last moments, I've seen that among countless of dying people in the hospital. And I'm not sure, was I traumatized by those deaths? Who knows? But after reading this, I was able to recall all the deaths I've seen, and I cried. I really did. And during the last moments of that person, the main character, he recalled all the times that he wasn't able to connect with his family, all the superficiality when he was living his life, and he contemplated if it was worth it to live that way. And then during his last moments, oh my gosh, this is a spoiler, but there was like redemption, and then he finally died. But I don't mind spoilers, since it's the way he wrote it that was the most magnificent thing about the book. So yes, this is my top one. Definitely a 5/5 star read. So yeah, I planned this video to be less than 20 minutes and it's almost 20 minutes. But I don't know. I hope you took inspiration from my descriptions of the books that I've read, the top books I've read this year. There were like lots of magnificent, inspirational, just 5-star books this year, and I had a difficult time trying to pick this 10. But at the end of the day, I picked 10, ranked 10, and was able to share my love for it. So, yeah, I hope you guys have a good new year, and thank you for watching. Bye bye.